So, how would you feel about your job if you did not know what the job responsibilities were and if you never got any feedback about how you're doing? If you're like most of us, you probably would be a little bit concerned, a little bit uneasy. So, my question is, why is it okay to treat your marriage that way? And that's what today's conversation is about. I'm Lesli Dories, your marriage coach, creator of the Hero Husband Project, and owner of Foundations Coaching. And, I really think that it would be helpful if couples sat down once a year and did a performance appraisal. Do a 360-degree review of your marriage. Because the truth of the matter is, you don't know, many of us don't know what makes marriage work. Your wife has one set of expectations, you have another set of expectations. And if you haven't talked about those expectations and agreed to them, you're setting yourself up for failure. And the holidays are ending, and we're about to start the new year. And this is one time when you could very well be fired from your role as a spouse and not even know it's coming. One of the things that happens in January is divorce attorneys' phones and marriage counselors' phones ring off the hook. And if your spouse has gone to a divorce attorney, you're going to be really swimming upstream to change things. And so the best thing to do is actually sit down and talk about what you each want, how you think things are going, and what needs to be done differently. And you can get feedback from your partner, from yourself, from your friends, from your kids, because what you're doing is you're teaching your children what a romantic relationship looks like. And I'm wondering, what is it that they're learning? Do they see you getting along? Do they see you solving problems together? Do they see kindness and respect? Or do they see arguments and name calling and people living two separate lives? And, your partner's view of you or view of the relationship is their perception. There is truth in that. They're not 100% accurate, but there is truth in that. And your view of them and the relationship, there's truth in that, not 100% accurate. But when you don't get feedback, positive, constructive, consistent feedback, then you have no idea where you are. If you talk to somebody who's a pilot who flies airplanes, if the pilot is off course by 1 degree, which doesn't sound like much, after several hours, they are nowhere where they need to be. And that's the same thing with your marriage. If you and your partner, if you and your wife have not talked about where you're going and how you're going to get there, you're going to be off course. And if you don't have the time to talk about it and get back on course, years can go by. And then you're disconnected. You aren't communicating well. One of you might think things are great, and the other one may be ready to call the divorce attorney. The thing is that we treat marriage differently than any other aspect of our lives, which I personally think is a little bit crazy. And I know that it's hard. I know that sitting down and talking about things can be scary, which is why if you set aside a specific time every year to do it, then it's not so scary. You know what's coming and you know how to talk about it. And things you need to be talking about: your finances, how you spend your time, whether, how you're raising your kids or how you're dealing with other family members, how the household is getting run, intimacy, how do you solve problems, how do you talk to each other, is there a sense of safety? All of these things are critically important, and we don't talk about them, right? When was the last time you had not an argument, not a bitching moaning session, not just a bunch of complaints, but an actual time where you sat down and you shared your view of your marriage with your wife, and your wife shared her view of the marriage with you? And if you can't remember the last time, or if it was a very unpleasant experience, then there's room for improvement. And I'm going to tell you, every single marriage on the face of the planet has room for improvement, at least in some area. There is no perfect marriage, just like there's no perfect person. But when you are able to talk to each other and you're able to be supportive and respectful of each other, you got a fighting chance. And if your marriage ends, it isn't just going to impact you. If you have children, they are going to be terribly impacted. Your friends and family are going to be impacted. Even your coworkers are going to be impacted, because we do know there are actual studies that talk about what happens to lost productivity when somebody in your organization is struggling at home. And maybe you've experienced that. Maybe you've had a coworker who's gone through this, and they're either not there because they're dealing with the lawyers, or they're there physically, but they're not there because their emotions have sidetracked them. And what I'm going to tell you is that you can do this, right? And the sooner you start, the better you're going to position yourself for success. And I would like to invite you, if you would like some help with either figuring out how to have that conversation, or once you've had the conversation and you've gotten feedback, which again, it is your partner's perception, it's your child's perception, it's your mother's perception. It isn't quote unquote reality. And it isn't necessarily 100% accurate, but neither is any other feedback you get. And the question is how do you take that feedback, decide what needs to be addressed, and then figure out the steps to do it? And that's where I come in. So if you'd like some help with that, I sincerely invite you, do not wait until you get the divorce papers, but get in touch with me, and we'll have a conversation about the feedback that you're getting or the feedback you want to give. So you can either put a message down below in the comment section, you can direct message me, or you can send me an email at Lesli, Lesli, at foundationscoachingnc.com. So hopefully I will hear from you soon, and hopefully you have found this helpful. And until next week, stay loving.